Golf Swing Weekly Fix Time with Golf WRX. Hello, my name is Mark Crossfield. We're talking draws and fades today with my driver. Been measuring more data with my 3D motion capture system, my swing. Let's show you what happens to me when I'm hitting draws and fades, and hopefully you can draw something from it to help you hit some better shots. Let's get stuck in. So what I'm going to do to start is I'm going to hit a 15-yard draw. So I'm going to try and start the ball down the right and draw it back to my target. So play my gaming draw driver. So that's a slightly bigger draw than I would hit if my standard shot. So I've tried to really shape the ball. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and hit the equivalent fade. And we're going to see from the data I've captured with my swing how different it actually is from one swing to the other, what kind of different movements I am making or not, compared to maybe what I feel I'm doing. So I'm going to hit my fade drive, starting it up the left 15 yards back towards target. So both of those pretty much hitting target and getting the desired shape. So let's actually look at some real measurements of what I did there different between the two shots, to see if it kind of correlates to what I feel I'm doing. So let's look at the avatar and my swings here. We've got some numbers going to be thrown at you on what I'm actually doing. If you look at my setup here, you can see from the draw swing, which is the one on the top, I'm closing my hips 14 degrees. So I'm putting my hips 14 degrees to the right. I've actually got my shoulder line slightly open. Where in the fade swing, I've got my hips level, or zero, pointing at target, where I've got my shoulders 15 degrees open. So I'm using my shoulders to hit my fade. So the way I set my shoulders up, pointing more left of target. But with my draw, I'm using more my hips, which is quite an interesting one. Now, if I just put up here some side tilt as well, this is going to make sense a little bit more to those shoulders and hips kind of change in the draw and the fade. I'm 9 degrees bent or tilted away from the target, if you like. In the draw swing, I'm actually 1 degree tilted towards target on the fade swing. So you can see I'm actually tilted in a very different way with my body to try and create those different shots, which is giving my hip and my shoulders those different movements a little bit to target as well. Now, this is what I find very, very interesting. Let's take my hip movement, for instance. I feel when I'm hitting my fade, like I'm opening my hips up more on the downswing. Now, if you look at the fade swing, I start zero, so at target, and if we take me to impact, I'm 44 degrees open to target at impact. Now, if you compare that on the draw swing, where the draw swing, I'm only 32 degrees open, you can see there, at impact. So that would kind of reiterate what I'm feeling when I'm hitting my shots. But the interesting point, if you look at my draw swing, I'm starting 15 degrees closed. So I'm 15 degrees closed addressed to 32 open. So you've got to add those two numbers together, which actually gets me 32 plus 15. So I'm, was it 32? Yeah, so I'm 47 degrees. It's no different. Arguably, I'm a few more degrees opened with my draw swing, just not to that 0 point. So what happens? I'm starting close with my hips 15 degrees and they're opening up 32. So actually the full range of movement is almost exactly the same. So the way I'm moving my hips, which to me feels very different in the swing, is almost exactly the same in the draw to the fade. All I'm doing is moving the baseline, if you like, where I'm starting to where I'm getting to, which I think is quite interesting. Now, if we go to wrist angles, this one's really interesting for me. So wrist angles, you can see it's all in that lead wrist, that left wrist extension, which again, I feel this, and this is something I think students need to feel more of as much as possible. I'm extending my left wrist 6 degrees as I hit the ball on the fade swing, where I'm actually in flexion 1 degree on the draw swing. So my left wrist is bending this way on the draw swing and it's flexed more, or extended more, sorry, on the fade swing. So the way I'm using my wrist is different on the two. And if we go up to the top of the backswing, you'll see the same thing. I'm only 6 degrees extended on the draw swing, so that would look very flat on a kind of 2D image, a camera image, depending on how far away the camera is, where I'm 14 degrees extended on my lead wrist, so on my left wrist for me at the top of the backswing. So that wrist angle, extension to flexion, is having a massive influence on that face of the path, and then in turn where I want that ball to shape. I'm using my setup, my turn's the same, my setup, moving that baseline, if you like, at the start to try and change path. Really interesting. So I'm actually moving my body very, very similar on those two swings if we take in rotations. Interesting one in the how much I'm tilting away from the target as well. I'm 16 degrees tilted away from the target on the draw swing, where I'm only 8 degrees on the fade swing. So I'm certainly using different side bends, tilts if you like, to try and encourage different angle of attack, stroke, different paths to encourage those draws and those fades. Let's show you what we can learn from these numbers. So for me, between the two shots, it's so evident that what I'm doing is setting myself up very differently, but I'm using my side bends, side tilts if you like, to encourage the different setups as well. So in the draw swing, I'm very happy to turn or tilt away from the ball a little bit more as I aim things to the right. As I make my backswing, I'm really keen to try and keep those tilts in there, to try and make sure, for me, I feel like I'm going to hit up and out at the ball. When I hit my fade swing, I'm much happier turning on top of the ball, feeling like I retain that turn on top of the ball. It's half the amount of tilt for the draw, and then for me it feels like just turning through, even though the turn's very much the same. It was the same in the hips and the shoulders actually. So for me, draws for lots of people, or wanting to hit fades, so often is about doing very extreme different movements, really feeling like a draw they want to feel like they're way inside, and the fade they feel like they want to feel way outside. Even though I have some feelings along those lines, I'm making very, very similar movements. All I'm doing is moving that baseline. So if I want to fade, I'm going to aim everything up the left, turn very much the same apart from that tilt, but very much use different wrist angles to make sure the face is reacting differently to the path, and then vice versa. If I want to hit that draw, I'm aiming everything up the right. I'm flattening that wrist as much as possible and feeling like I'm tilted behind the ball. Now I've done this with a few students as well over the years. I haven't measured them as much, but when you get students feeling this kind of simplistic way, just changing that setup and a little tweak in their wrist angle from what you might know as cupped to straight or flexed, you can get massive results in how they shape the ball with real ease. Think wrist angles, think baselines at the start. I'm going to hit the fade, the shot lots of you guys and girls will kind of nod after. Often one a good player does like hitting. Changing those tilts, changing those wrist angles to maneuver that ball. Post comments down below, let me know if this makes sense. I'm loving measuring with my new system. I think it's hopefully showing you, and it's showing me, some really interesting facts around some of the feelings that maybe you and I are trying to feel when hitting different shots. Post comments down below. As always, speak to you next week. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Periscope, all the normal social places. Also, come and visit my new website, markcrossfieldgolf.com. See you over there.